All right, welcome to the Gamblers Podcast, The Dark Side of Gambling. I wanted to kind of provide an update. It's been a few weeks since I posted last, and I think, um, at this point in the year where it's the NFL, college football, everything kind of started. We're kind of already in the thick of, a point where if you're addicted to gambling, dealing with any sort of, um, you know, issues kind of staying away from laying a wager. This is probably one of the toughest times of the year to be dealing with it. For me, this is a time of year where a lot of my problems compounded. I kind of want to talk a little bit about kind of what the gambling addiction does look like behind closed doors, because most people they don't understand what a weekend like this, or each Saturday and Sunday kind of means to a gambler, especially if you're a sports bettor like myself. And a few years ago, really not a few, but maybe 6 7 years ago, I took not only sports betting to the extreme, but I also started to play daily fantasy sports. So my losses or wins would ultimately double every weekend in a loss, or the opposite direction, in a few wins. So this is the toughest time to back away because you feel like you have the answers, you feel like you know what's going on. And if you're somebody like me who gets pretty deep into data, numbers, and then historically, I enjoy, just players, just understanding their stats and, what they did last year, what they did the year before. And then when you start to break down all the information, it's interesting to you. So that interest becomes something that you feel like, or in my case, I feel like I could made money off of because I felt like I understood the information so well. But in all reality, when you realize that the numbers, the lines, everything is based off of so much historical data that you're always at a disadvantage because Vegas, uh, or the sports books or offshores, are so on point with what the lines are, that you misconstrue what you think that as opportunity. And in reality, it's not. Some of my biggest losses and biggest wins occurred playing daily fantasy sports. And when you think that, in my opinion, when you think that daily fantasy is not gambling, when in reality it is, it's not, even though it's labeled as a contest or whatever, it's not gambling in your mind. So when you're addicted to gambling and people don't understand what that looks like behind closed doors, it's one of those things where as a gambler or as an addict, you can basically at that point tell everybody that you've quit, you're done, oh, this is something completely different. This takes nothing but pure, understanding of the data, the information. It's a contest. It's not, you're not betting on an event. You're not pulling the lever on a machine. And you're not at a table, placing a wager of some sort, on a table game. So, people justify it differently because it doesn't feel like you have a gambling addiction if you've moved on from what's considered traditional gambling to a contest type of game, right? So it's almost the same thing in my opinion where maybe people who play lottery type of games or certain type of games where they think that they understand, and they've beat the math in some way, or they found value in it, and it's not necessarily playing with the casino or betting with the bookie. So but all is the same pretty much at the end of the day. Not only did I lose a lot of money playing daily fantasy, but I then took that information in some cases and then I compounded it by placing wagers that corresponded um, with those particular plays that I picked on the weekend. Now, there was weekends that I did win a lot of money. I had a weekend where I won $60,000. And the weekend that I won $60,000 in daily fantasy sports was the weekend that I believe, that took me from, somebody who was in a pretty bad situation to somebody who be gotten themselves in a situation that became way too deep to have a short-term plan to get out of. And what I mean by that is, I made so much money that particular weekend. I thought I can cover everything. The problem was that I had so much debt already that even that $60,000 that I won didn't cover it all. Then, at the same token, I also wanted to keep playing because I felt like I had won so much that, well, I can continue to win. And that is more false hope. So when you talk about, are you playing daily fantasy? Maybe if you're not much of a gambler, you would walk away with that 60K and pay what you can and then figure out the rest later. But as a gambler, you take that win, you're so happy, you're excited about it, you tell people about it, you take, screenshots if you can, you want to brag about it. um, you want to milk as much dopamine, as you can from that situation. And because of that, it clouds your judgment, and then all of a sudden you think that this is a career, this is a job, this is something that can become something that it's not. And I thought that was the case. I thought that I had cracked. Um, I thought I really had figured out. I thought I had cracked the actual code. Um, in reality, I didn't. I didn't crack the code. I didn't figure it out. Um, Maybe for that weekend I got lucky. Maybe for some weekends I got lucky. But what I really did was I put myself in a position where I thought I was even more, into the game, that I should have been. And I regret it by ever starting playing fantasy. I wish I, honestly had just continued to just sports bet, but I took, maybe a $2,000 loss in a day and turned it into $4,000 loss because I kept wagering and playing daily fantasy at the same time. And so not only did I do it at the same time, but I did it in a manner which, um, rather than, and again, I understand people talk about bankroll, and if you manage the bankroll right, you'll be fine. Yeah, for maybe certain people, but for the most part, if you're a degenerate gambler and you have any type of money, and if you think and you have access to that money, you're gonna play it, and you're gonna put the amount that you think that would give you the best payout. And after I had won that 60K, I had paid some people some money back, paid a lot of stuff back. Um, but I was never satisfied. So I went back for more. So I continued to go and I continued to play. What that did was it not only put me in a position where I kept playing larger amounts to get back the larger amounts that I was losing, but then I actually went back into the negative. So not only did I win the 60K, but then I lost all of it, went into the negative, and then I started borrowing money once again. And the people who I borrowed money from had saw a return in some of their investment. They saw some money get paid back, and this is where we talk about, um, dealing with loan sharks and people who want something for what they're loaning you. And for me, it was whatever I could do to get my hands on some money. And so if that was borrowing from a loan shark and paying double the amount of money back in interest because I thought I could make three or four or five times, maybe even more, that's what I did. So I made promises that I couldn't deliver on, by borrowing money and then losing that money and then not being able to pay back, then continuing to borrow money to continue to try to win the money back. And all that did was cycle me into a massive amount of debt with one particular loan shark that ended up well over $80,000. So, um, I don't recommend for anybody to get into a situation where you're double dipping, you're trying to play fantasy, you're trying to sports bet, you're trying to do all these things, take advantage of all the information you think you have to be able to cash out the biggest payday of your life. Let me tell you something. Even if you win, likelihood is whatever you win isn't enough to cover everything that you owe. And because of that, at some point, you have to be at peace with yourself, knowing that you're just not going to be able to catch up. You're just not going to be able to pull that very last bit in. You're not going to be able to be even. You're going to have to take a loss and you're going to have to work harder or longer or for more years or whatever the case is to be able to pay it back and pay it off. Um, I recommend that you take that route before you get to a point where that route just becomes so much longer, the longer and longer and longer you wait. For me, it took 20 years. And so because it took 20 years, I owe well over $250,000. Um, at the end of the day, I'm motivated. I feel like I can overcome that. I have made a good amount of money in my career doing what I used to do. Um, and so I know that at some point, if I do the right things, I work hard enough, I'm focused, I have the energy to put out there, then I will overcome that. I will make that money. Um, I will pay my debts. I will be able to do the things that I want to do, and I can do it the right way. One thing that I know I mentioned in one of my previous videos is, when you do stop gambling and when you do put your focus on something completely different, you'd be surprised how much good things can come out of that when you have new ideas, when you understand that, hey, this is really interesting. Let me go ahead and dive much deeper into this particular area. Let me figure this out. Maybe, you might want to begin to make content, figure out little ways to build your own self-confidence, build something for yourself, hit some goals. I think anytime that you can find a way to hit goals, even if they're very small, like let's say you live in a house where you've been gambling every single day and you don't clean up, you don't wash the dishes, you don't do anything. Everything just feels so cluttered and causes just a extreme amount of anxiety. Maybe try to get yourself out of that mode for that week by cleaning, by spending time making the place look spotless, getting yourself in an area where you can think, you can be free to, create. And then that allow you to hopefully find things that you weren't even able to think about before. I think tapping into, your ability, your mind's ability to be creative and think of things and learn is going to be key, because probably the amount of energy that you put towards sports betting or gambling or odds or whatever it is that's associated with making a wager, um, in some way, shape, or form, that amount of energy towards anything else is going to be insane. And, for my personal example, because, obviously I stopped gambling recently, is that there's so many projects that I want to do. I keep thinking of so many different things that I'm interested in. Like I'll just kind of give you guys some ideas right now. We can talk about some of them later. But I've started an efficient eBay store. I've opened up an Amazon and a Walmart store. I have content that I make on multiple other accounts on different platforms. There are a lot of things that I have began to do just in a very short period of time, that I'm able to like spread out my actual thoughts and my energy to different areas. And because of that, it keeps me on something else. I'm continuously focusing on something and trying to figure something out. And at the end of the day, those times where I need money, because I can't pay for something or whatever the case is, and in your mind, you're like, hey, if I just get a little bit of money, double that money, then I could pay for this thing. But in all reality, you end up in the hole again. That's the process that I want to avoid. So I found myself being able to figure out, how to make my payments, if I need to borrow a couple dollars or if I need to sell something or if I need to do something else. It's a lot easier when you stop digging yourself a hole that you simply cannot get out of. So, the addiction, you know, of a gambler behind closed doors is nothing like anybody's ever seen, because it's easy to mask it when that door opens. So if anybody comes knocking, uh, you know, hypothetically, obviously, but if anybody comes knocking and you open the door, you can make yourself look like the happiest, most content person in the world. And then as soon as that door closes again, you're in this zone of repetitive behavior that puts you in a cycle that you feel like you cannot get out of. And I had my own temptations recently, because again, the NFL season starts and college football starts, and everybody's talking about, the wagers, all the commercials, the prize picks, every celebrity that you think. kids look up to or whatever are promoting, DraftKings or FanDuel or, something to do with gambling. It's all there for everybody to see. So for somebody like myself, and I'm sure if you're listening, it's not easy to see that and control the temptation. But at the same token, I'm very worried that there are going to be a whole generation of kids right now that are operating with the idea that Prize Picks is a friend of theirs. DraftKings is a friend of theirs. Whatever. It used to be to where you had to make a trip to Vegas to lose all your money. Now you can sit at home and you can lose all of your money and more in a very short period of time from your computer or your cell phone. So, we'll circle back and we'll talk, on a few more subjects, very soon as well. I just kind of wanted to give you an update, and hopefully, you're all, hanging in there. I appreciate those of you that commented on some of my videos. It means a lot. It pushes me to come back and make another video and talk some more. I do have the X account that I made where, if you want to talk and post, the link to the account is actually right in the bio for the YouTube channel as well. So hit the subscribe button, like, share, comment. Appreciate all the love and everything you guys provide energy wise to me and my recovery from gambling addiction. Thank you so much. Have a great day.